I came to Willow Creek in late October of 2019. At the time, I was a freelance journalist, chasing small-town mysteries, local legends, old crimes, anything with a hint of darkness. But the story I found there was different. This one didn't feel like a legend. It felt alive. The first disappearance happened in the fall of 2013. A boy named Ethan Rowe, age 10. He left Willow Creek Elementary one afternoon and never made it home. Police searched the nearby woods, drained the creek, even brought in dogs. Nothing. It was as if the boy had vanished between the schoolyard and his front door, a distance of less than half a mile. Then it happened again, and again. Over 6 years, 5 children went missing, all from within walking distance of the same school. The town whispered about it, of course, but people here had a way of avoiding the truth. They blamed wild animals, strangers passing through, bad parenting, anything but the idea that something was hunting their children. When I arrived, the case was cold. No new leads, no suspects. But I'd read enough police reports to see a pattern no one else wanted to face. All the disappearances happened near Old Pine Road, a narrow path that runs behind the school and leads straight into the forest, a place locals called the Corridor. I walked that path my first day there. The trees hung low, tangled together like arms trying to block out the sky. There was a rusted chain-link fence separating the trail from the back of the schoolyard. Kids had carved their initials into it over the years, little ghosts of normal life. Halfway down, I found a clearing. There was a small concrete structure, barely visible under moss and weeds. An old storm drain entrance. The opening was wide enough for a child to crawl through. Later, I checked city records. According to the documents, that drain system was sealed off in 1987 after a flooding accident. So whatever was down there, if anything still was, shouldn't exist. When I showed photos of the drain to a retired janitor from the school, his face went pale. He told me that back in the 80s, a man had been hired to do maintenance near that system. A quiet, solitary type named Harold Griggs. He lived on the outskirts of town, alone, in a trailer that backed right up to the forest line. The janitor said that after a girl disappeared in '87, Griggs vanished too. No record of him leaving, no forwarding address, just gone. The police had written it off as coincidence. But coincidences don't leave claw marks on metal doors. The hardest part of investigating a place like Willow Creek isn't the lack of evidence. It's the silence. People here don't talk, not to outsiders, not to each other. When I tried interviewing parents of the missing children, most refused. A few slammed their doors. But one woman, Linda Rowe, Ethan's mother, agreed to meet. We sat in her kitchen while rain hammered the windows. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept properly in years. He was afraid of the woods, she told me. Always said someone was watching him from the fence behind the school. I thought it was just his imagination. Then she paused. The morning he disappeared, he told me not to make him walk home alone. He said he saw a man near the drain last week, a man with no face. I pressed her for details, but she broke down before she could say more. When I left her house, I couldn't shake that phrase, a man with no face. I thought it was just a child's way of saying he couldn't describe him. But later, I'd hear the same description from two other parents. Each of them mentioned a tall figure, seen lingering near the woods, always near the same time, right before dusk. A few days later, I met with Deputy Mark Hansen, one of the few officers still on the original case. He was friendly enough, but cautious, as if he'd said too much before and regretted it. When I asked him for Griggs, he nodded slowly. "Yes, I remember that name. He was one of the first people we looked into back then, but we never found him. Thing is, there were some weird calls that came in after he disappeared." He leaned forward. "You know the storm drain behind the school? Some nights, people reported hearing voices coming from there. Kids crying for help. When we went to check, it was always empty." He handed me an old cassette tape, a copy of a 911 call from 2015. I played it that night in my motel room. The recording was faint, muffled with static, but I could make out a child's voice. "Please, I can't see. He's coming back." Then footsteps and something dragging across metal. Then silence. The call ended there. The number it came from was never traced. I sat there in the dark for hours, listening to the tape over and over, trying to convince myself it was a hoax. But the longer I listened, the less sure I became. A week into my stay, something changed. It started with small things. My motel door was open one morning, even though I was sure I'd locked it. My card alarm went off in the middle of the night, twice. Then I began noticing the same white pickup truck parked near the school every day. No plates, no driver in sight. One evening I followed it. It led me down Old Pine Road, past the school, toward the forest. By the time I'd caught up, the truck was gone. But the storm drain was open. The metal cover had been dragged aside, leaving a dark mouth in the ground. I shined my flashlight inside. The beam caught something. A child's shoe, small and mud-stained. Next to it, a plastic lunchbox. Ethan Rowe's name was still visible on the lid. My heart pounded as I called the sheriff's office. They sent a team to search the drain, but the system collapsed halfway in. They couldn't go any further. When they checked the area the next day, the shoe and lunchbox were gone. They told me it was probably an animal that dragged them away, but I'd seen the size of the marks on that metal lid. Whatever opened it had fingers. By November, I was ready to leave. Whatever story I thought I could write, it wasn't worth staying. But before I left, I got one last call. It came from a blocked number. A low, shaky voice on the other end whispered, "You're looking for Harold Griggs. He's still here." And then the line went dead. The call traced back to an abandoned property off the highway, the same lot where Griggs' trailer once stood. I drove there the next morning. The forest had swallowed the place whole. Branches pushed through the walls. The roof sagged over years of moss. Inside, everything was covered in dust. But there were signs someone had been there recently. A half-burned candle, a pile of children's drawings on the floor, stick figures holding hands, all standing in front of a large, dark shape with no face. One drawing had words scrawled across the bottom in crayon. "He lives under the school." I left before dark, but as I reached the road, I saw something in my rearview mirror. A figure standing near the edge of the woods, half hidden in shadow, tall, still, watching. I didn't stop to look closer. I filed my story with the local paper, but they never published it. A week later, their editor called to tell me the police had reopened the case, but they found nothing. No evidence, no suspects. Even the drain had been filled in with concrete. 2 months later, the school closed permanently after reports of gas leaks in the basement. Parents moved